Good afternoon and welcome to the very first Idaho House Republican podcast. And we're so grateful that you joined us today. And you may be wondering, well, why are we doing this podcast? Well, it's very important that we get to know the 61 members of the Republican caucus on a personal and a legislative basis. You may want to know what legislative district that they represent. You may want to know what they're doing for their communities back home. You may want to know what committees they're on, what legislation they're running. So we're going to try to get to know these representatives on a more personal level, on a legislative level, and what just drives them, why they decided to become part of this august body that we call the Idaho House. So this is our first episode, and for our first episode, we thought, well, why not have the caucus chair, the person who really represents the voice of those 61 representatives, and that would be Representative Jaron Crane. So good afternoon to you, Jaron Crane.
Thank you, Victor. It's good to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Yes, it's going to be fantastic. I can't wait for this adventure. So you represent Legislative District 12, and you're in your second term.
I do.
Correct?
I do.
So tell people, where is Legislative District 12?
Yeah, great question.
Who do you represent in the state?
Okay, so Legislative District 12 is the west side of Nampa. So in Nampa, we have 12th Avenue that kind of cuts right through the middle of Nampa. I would be on the west side of that street. I go south and I go north all the way up to the boulevard, to that area of town, and then I head west. So I have a little bit of an interesting district. The actual soil in my district is the #1 soil in the world for growing seeds. Yeah, and it's currently being covered up quite a bit by concrete because we're doing a lot of development, but it is very, very rich soil in my district. So that's one little special, unique thing about District 12.
That's fantastic. And so let's talk about a little bit about your background. You are born and bred Idahoan, and you come from a political family. So maybe tell people a little bit about those aspects of your life.
Yeah. So third generation Idahoan, born and raised in Nampa. My dad is former state treasurer Jaron Crane. He did 16 years in the House of Representatives before he moved on to go become Idaho state treasurer. He did that for 20 years as well.
Wow.
Then my brother Brent stepped into public service as well, and he's currently in his 20th year. I'm sure you'll have him on the show later. And I'm in my 4th year, so my second term, 4th year, and I'm in House leadership as well.
Fantastic. And so you also are on committees. You sit on some committees. So tell everyone what committees that you sit on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on the business committee. We're chaired by Representative Redmond. It's an afternoon committee on every other day. My alternating day committee would be the House Transportation and Defense Committee, chaired by Representative Joe Palmer out of Meridian. So I sit on the House Ways and Means Committee as a member of leadership. That is the Speaker's Leadership Committee. That's chaired by Representative Ehlers out of Meridian. And then I also sit on the House State Affairs Committee, which is chaired by my brother, Brent Crane.
There you go. Little family affair. I like that. So now let's talk about the fact that you are the Majority Caucus Chairman. So what does that mean? What does the caucus chair do for its 61 members? In this case, there's 61 members of the House. Of the 70 seats are Republicans. What do you do on their behalf?
Oh, that's a large job description. One of the primary functions is I hold weekly caucus meetings. So I bring everyone together. One thing that I particularly have done differently than it's been done in the past is provide a lot of vision and direction for where the caucus is going. How do I do that? I send out a survey every single year and say, what does your district want you to work on? What are the top 3 priorities you have from your district? You know, we have 35 districts around the state, so some people are worried about water, agriculture. Some people are worried about immigration issues. I mean, Idaho has over 2 million people. My job is to channel these legislators into a direction and say, where are we going in this year? What do we want to accomplish? What is our roadmap? And then I track those priorities. So when we come down to average those out, we'll pick our top 3 to 5 priorities, and I will track them. Who's working on that issue? Where's that bill at? Is it sitting in committee? Is it being drafted? Is it being held? Do we have a replacement bill? That provides direction for the caucus. It provides purpose. One of the other functions is to raise money. So one of the things that I do is I raise money in order to support the media and communications of the caucus, in order to support these legislators. You know, I told them that what's important to me is these are the jerseys that were sent to us.
Right.
And I will make sure I do everything in my power to bring you back. If your district chooses to change the jersey out, It's not going to be because of me.
Right.
It's going to be because they decided they wanted somebody else different. So I will help raise funds and help you in your district do the best job that I can. Communicating messaging. When it comes to the floor, I do a lot of announcements or keep everybody on the same page when it comes to Ron DeSantis coming into town next week. Well, how would I know that? I've communicated that from someone. I communicated out to my caucus, and I communicated out to the floor. So there's a lot of messaging that's sent through me on behalf of the caucus. I would say bringing everyone together. You know, when you have 61 alpha males and females, everyone's brought here with an agenda, with a focus. They're happy, they're excited, they're eager. It's hard to corral that many personalities. And so one of the things I have to do is provide the calm, the steady, but also the motivating, the uplifting, and try to make sure that everybody's staying focused and on mission. So those are large parts of my job, but it extends a little bit beyond that. When we do a reorganization, I'll do all the office assignments. I'll handle making sure everybody gets their parking passes done, where they sit on the floor. So I facilitate a lot of moving parts in my job description.
And also a little inside baseball, you'll be sitting in the gallery and you'll hear the Speaker of the House will gavel out and say we're at ease, right? A lot of times it's because there's a controversial piece or the vote's not coming along or there's some disputes among the caucus on what direction to take. And at that point, you're going to go into this room that sits behind your office, this caucus room, and what are you going to do with your caucus as you try to work through the things that are on the floor?
Yeah,
that's an interesting part of your role too.
Yeah, in a sense, he calls a timeout,
right?
And so it's me getting the team back together. Sometimes it's just a couple of members had a disagreement on the floor, and in that case, it's the leadership team that walks out with them and says, "Hey, what's the issue here? Let's work it out." If it's broader than that and it's spreading out in my caucus, then I bring everybody into the room and bring everybody back to focus as, in a sense, a coach, and say, "Hey, here's where we're at. Let's talk this issue out in private. Let's get decorum back. And we've got to move forward and move issues on the table."
And get a consensus of the 61
Absolutely.
Of how you're going to move forward. That's a very important role of what you do. Now, let's a little bit more inside baseball. There's 4 pieces of members of leadership of the Republican Party: the Speaker of the House, Majority Leader, the Assistant Majority Leader, and the Caucus Chair. So tell people about what those roles are and how they are elected, appointed. Tell people how that works.
Sure. So our appointments or elections, as you would call them, would be for 2-year cycles. At any point in time, you could call on leadership. You could say, "Hey, I want to call for a vote of no confidence." You can do that at any point in time on any member of leadership. But the way it works in custom and precedent would be every 2 years we elect ourselves a speaker, a leader, assistant majority leader, and caucus chair. Those announcements have been historically made at the North Idaho tour. So we usually take a North Idaho tour and we take an East Idaho tour every other year. Those alternate. So what they've traditionally done is when you get to the North Idaho tour, you would announce, we would have a caucus meeting. And then you would stand up and we would, let's say we're going to start with a caucus chair. We'll just start at the bottom there and say we're going to go with the caucus chair. If you would like to run, stand up. You stand up and you give a campaign speech for that position of what you want to do, why you're running, and you express your interest in it. Now, if a member wasn't present, it doesn't mean they can't run for it. It's not like, oh, it's closed, nominations are closed. It's nothing like that. It's just kind of a formal precedent that they've had. So you would announce that you're running for that, and then you would begin your campaign for that position. So we then go and we have it's in Constitution, we will reorganize in that first week of December, every single session, every other year. So at that point in time, we come together in a room and we have our election. And that's where you kind of give a similar speech, and then the caucus votes, and here's how we go. And then that's then decided by a vote of the caucus members. This is who we want to do each of these jobs.
So in this case, the 61 members would have picked those 3. But the speaker election is a little different than the other 3, right? So tell people how the speaker is elected.
So we still elect him in caucus. And then when we go to the floor, everyone has to vote on that. So the Democrats technically could say, no, we're not voting for him. They could do that. But as long as we have gone and supported him with a majority of our caucus votes, then he would be nominated and elected as speaker.
Fantastic. So let's now talk about how you work with the Senate. So you have a counterpart in the Senate, and you obviously must work with leadership in the Senate. How does the caucus chair in the House work with the Senate, the other chamber here at the State House?
So we meet once a week with the House and the Senate. I stay in pretty regular communication with my counterpart, would be Senator Taves on the other side, and kind of find out where his caucus is at. And so we kind of stay in tune with, hey, how's your caucus doing? Good. All right, how's yours doing? And we just kind of know based on personalities and how things are moving within our body, if legislation is going to get a little bit stalled or if it's going to continue to move along. We meet with them once a week. We talk about our priorities, how things are moving. what bills or issues are coming up on their side. There's usually points of contention on an issue that they see it differently, and that's a good time for us to work that out. We don't go bill by bill. We don't have that kind of time. We just talk on a high level. What issues are stalled on your side? What are stalled on our side? Is there an impasse, or is it actually going to move forward on high priority issues? They have a similar way of going about providing vision and direction for their caucus. They have what they call a go-home list. So they create a bunch of bills. We have a much smaller go-home list because I send it out and say, we're going to neck this down to 3 to 5 priorities. They may come with a list of 10 to 15. But a lot of times on that list are the same exact objectives that we've decided as a caucus as well. So they may pick a topic. I'll use immigration as a foil.
Right.
They may say, hey, that's a go-home issue for us. And in that meeting, I'm like, yeah, I'm working that issue. Like, yeah, I know you are. You seem to bring a lot of immigration issues. So I know from my caucus that that's in our top 3 to 5 issues we want to solve. What bills come out of that? We're not going into that depth, but we're just talking about the topic. The topic is coming up in the House. Okay, yeah, it's coming up in the Senate as well. So sometimes those concur and other times they don't.
So let's talk a bit about, is there any legislation, let's put it this way, since you're in leadership, is it typical for leadership to actually lead bills as well? And given that, are there any bills, if so, are there any bills that you want to advance or things that you are really want to drive through the legislature this year?
Yeah, so we would find in our House leadership meetings, we would find issues that the Speaker cares about, the Majority Leader, myself, and the Assistant Majority Leader. For example, Representative Monk's done a great job with House Bill 93. So
yes.
If they're, that just rolled out and it's up and going and there's tremendous support for it. But that doesn't mean that it's going to go without a hitch. It doesn't mean that everything in that nailed the technicalities of maybe how something needs to roll out. So is there a fix that needs made? I don't know. But if there is, he will lead out with that and say, hey, guys, I know that I let out with this bill. It's now into law. It's working, but maybe there's a mechanism we need to tweak that we didn't see.
And House Bill 93 was basically opening up new options for people to get education choices. Yeah. And it was a $50 million bill.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there may be with that some mechanics that need worked out. He would actually lead out with that and say, hey, I'm close to the issue. I know the issue. Here's something we need to fix. Let's use myself, for example, as the topic of immigration. So back when Joe Biden was in office, we had an open border and we had people storming in. So legislators around the country started to say, what are we going to do? Because Congress isn't doing anything. Our president's not doing anything. So state legislatures started standing up their own laws. So I've kind of let out on that issue here locally by House Bill 83 with Representative Skog, Senator Lakey, and Senator Anthen, with creating, hey, we're going to get the criminal illegal aliens, we're going to get them sent back, and a process to do that. So that may be an issue and a topic that comes up. I will probably lead out with that and say, hey guys, there's a couple more points on immigration, for example, we need to address that we've missed, and they would know that. Speaker Moyle may have some tax stuff. He likes to work a lot of tax policy.
Right.
So he may come forward with, hey, there's a new tax issue that we're going to work through. And we just kind of work that out amongst ourselves. I may lead into, hey, I have a cell phone bill. I want to protect kids with online and kind of share that with the group. Yeah, online content, and make an age verification for children.
Yes.
I may lead into that meeting with that issue, and they're like, that's really great. We're going to support you in that, and we'll help you any way we can. So as you share your ideas amongst that team, then you'll kind of carry it forward. But we kind of support each other.
And when do you start this process? You said this is kind of new in the House, but when are you going to start the process of doing that go home, that 3 to 5 key go home bills? And how do you do that? You do a survey with everyone? Is that how you do it?
Yep. So I would have liked to have gotten that out to the caucus members, as soon as possible. This week was a lot of reorganization work, right? It's a lot of come back and get settled in and welcome the new members in. So in the first couple weeks of the legislative session, it's nice to let them settle in. Mm-hmm. And then you kick them that survey and say, I know you came here with stuff. Let's talk about your stuff. So I will send out to the caucus a survey in the first 2 weeks every year and say, hey, let's start getting these priorities together. Let's organize. Let's have a formal caucus meeting. Let's start going around the room and making any introductions that haven't been made. And then let's go ahead and get to work on the issues that we care about. Because
you do have some new members, right, between last year's session and this year's session. Is it 3 or 4 new members? Can you remind me?
We've got 3 new members. So Representative Horman going to work for
the Trump administration.
So we've got her replacement, Erin. She's doing a great job, really smart. She's grabbed stuff really quick. Then we've got Don Hall, who took Representative Clow's spot. He's retired. And then we have our other replacement with Veely, with Representative Andrus going and working for the Trump administration as well. So Representative Veely's taken his seat and he's done a great job. So yeah, we've got 3 new members.
That's fantastic. So let's talk about, do you have in mind what you think will be the go home bill this year? There's been a lot of talk about the budget, for example, this year, more than in the press has written more about that this year than normal. Do you think that's going to be the big issue this year?
I think it's the big hurdle. I don't think it's the go home bill. It is the one constitutional requirement we have is to set the budget. That is true. I think that if I could insert a topic within the budget, I would say probably conformity.
With the big beautiful bill.
With the big beautiful bill, there's so many things to conform to as a state, and every state has to go and tackle that. I think that would be probably what I would insert as one of the top priorities for both chambers.
And I've also heard the big beautiful bill, there's some elements of it that would actually be retroactive to previous years. So we've got to figure out whether we're going to go retroactive or just kind of from here forward.
That's correct. Yep.
So stay tuned, sports fans. So lastly, I would just ask you, what is your vision for this Idaho House Republicans podcast? Why was it on your heart to start this?
When I took over as the caucus chair for the House, I began to think, what can I do to enhance the visibility of this caucus in the community? I'll never forget this, but it was the night that I was announcing at the North Idaho tour, Representative Holtzclaw's wife was sitting right there in between Representative Holtzclaw and myself, and she said, "Are you open to a community service project?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." I said, "Do you have any ideas?" She's like, "No, I don't have any ideas specifically, but would you do something like get out in the community, raise some money for a cause?" And so, we just talked at a really, really high level. And I said, "I would love to get the caucus involved in the community in some way." And so we did. And so for the last 2 years, we've raised money for foster kids. This last year, we raised $66,000 to support those kids in the community. And that's to show that we're not just legislators, we're people. This is our home. This is where we go, we live, we work, we go to church, we go to school. This is our home. These are our kids too. And so bringing the caucus closer to the community. One of the other things that we've done is social media presence. We didn't have a visible social media presence on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We didn't have that. And this was another way that this podcasting thing has kind of come up in the last 5 years or so as another medium by which you can get a message out to the world. And I want the people of Idaho to know their representatives. I want to have them know, who did we send, know them on a personal level. What bills and issues do they care about? What is it like to be a representative? What are they working on? What do they do there? It can seem kind of like we're in our own little snow globe here. And I want to open that up to the people of Idaho so they can get an inside look as to who these members are and who you've sent and what they care about and what they're passionate about, and get to know them on a personal level. So it's to get more medians out there for them to connect with the citizens of Idaho.
Well, I couldn't think of a better way to end our very first Idaho House Republicans podcast. And I thank you, Jaron Crane. You have been doing an excellent job on behalf of the caucus and on behalf of Idahoans. And we just appreciate you spending some time to let people come to know a little bit about you and what drives you and your role here in the State House. And we're looking forward to many, many more of these Idaho House Republican podcasts. And we hope you will join us in the future. And until then, Victor Miller saying goodbye on behalf of the Idaho House Republicans.
Sunrise on the Snake River Plain, red, white, and blue in the window pane. Work boots dusty from yesterday, but we're back at it the Idaho way. From Timber Town.